All right. I am here with Rachel today. We're doing another episode of Truth Talks where we go over our client stories. Rachel, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Pretty good, thanks. Pretty good, thanks. Maybe just walk us through a little bit about yourself, what you do, maybe just a little bit of your past with your fitness experience as well, and just kind of give us the synopsis.
The synopsis? All right. So a little bit about myself. I mean, I've always been a pretty athletic person, but I've always struggled to stay committed to working out. I've always, got those memberships, would go a little bit and then fall off of that routine.
Mhm.
But I mean, a couple years ago, I would say I've had one of my friends, we had the exact same schedule and she worked out a lot. And so I joined her during those time and she actually kind of taught me the ropes, and having that buddy to go with kind of kept me accountable. And
Awesome.
that kind of kickstarted my journey, to be honest. And then yeah, since then I've kind of been committed. I started with F45 at
Mhm.
high intent, the HIT training,
Mhm.
and then found love in strength training. So
Nice. Awesome. That's super
yeah,
cool. That's super
yeah.
cool. And would you say that, so before you kind of started a couple of years ago, before that you were just kind of on and off going in and out of the gym, kind of like not very consistent, you said?
No, so I've struggled my whole life with my weight. Although I was athletic, playing sports and stuff, nutrition was always a challenge for me, and it still
Mhm.
is. I still have those days that it's still challenging for me. So I've always struggled over the years with my weight and being a little bit overweight. And it wasn't until the last couple of years that I really was able to find something that worked for me, and then kept myself in a healthy state.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. And when was kind of that flick of the switch where you realize, okay, I might not be the most happy with where I am right now with my physique and I need to take some sort of action? Like, was there a certain moment that you remember, or did it just kind of slowly start happening?
Um, so, I mean, when I would say probably my middle of my 20s, after university, I I with my friend, honestly, is what I can remember is when her and I would follow her to the gym.
Hmm.
Like that's when that's when it stuck, and that's when it worked for me. Like years ago, I did Weight Watchers, and that worked for me, which was great at the time. But then as soon as I would stop that,
Hmm.
my weight would go back up, or my nutrition, I would fall back into unhealthy ways. And when I was younger, I partied a lot, drank a lot, and that was my priority at the time. So
Right.
I would say it was after university. I started working full time, and I was able to get into more of a solid routine, and maybe I just needed to mature a little bit to realize that I need to put my health first.
Mhm.
So that was the realization for me too.
Okay, gotcha. So your priorities kind of shift as you said, as you mature, as you get more responsibilities, and your mindset kind of changes a little bit. It definitely makes a lot of sense. Okay, that's awesome. I feel like I'm going to learn a few things about you in this, and maybe I didn't know as well.
Yeah.
So maybe walk me through kind of when we started. Where were you at? Like when we chatted about kind of your goals and your vision for yourself, like what point were you at in terms of like your physique, and then also like mentally, in terms of your self-perception?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, so before you and I started working together, I have my personal training certificate. I've coached at F45. I have a pretty good foundation of the fitness world. Although I mean, I thought I did. And then I've just learned so much connecting with you, right?
Mhm.
And being able to let go of the focus of so much cardio to then focusing on just getting my steps in, and strength training has been
Mhm.
like a whole other learning curve for me. And I think it just took me some time to realize that like I knew that that was the right thing to do a couple like months ago, and I knew that that was what I should do. It was psychologically, I was fearful to let go of that cardio all the time. So that's been a really great learning curve too. And even though I thought I knew so much in the fitness world with my experience, I still had so much to learn too, which has been a really enlightening for me.
Mm-hmm. No, that's awesome. I'm really happy to hear that. And it's funny because a lot of coaches have coaches as well. And even
Mhm.
if like there's certain, you're always going to learn something from somebody else. And then also when it comes to yourself, it's easier sometimes when somebody else just calls the shots and you just follow it. Like whenever I do my fat loss phases, I also have a coach because it's just nice to have that open discussion. And sometimes they can see things that you don't because we're still have some sort of subjectivity with how we see ourselves, and we don't have that objective view sometimes that we need somebody else. So and I always learn something from working with other coaches as well for my fitness journey. So it's like I think as coaches it's like it's perfectly fine. It doesn't mean you're not a good coach or don't know enough. It's just like it's all good to have some other guidance too, right? So
Mhm.
I think that's an important realization. Okay, that's awesome. And I feel like I want to dive into a little bit of, your psychology in terms of when you started. Like we've been pretty successful in the phase that we've done so far in our chapter one. So what was that kind of, what was the state that kept you motivated during it, and like what kept you kind of locked in? Like what was going on in your mind, I guess?
I think what kept me well, first of all, the weekly check-ins, like for me, that accountability is substantial for me. I need that, and I know that I need that. But also I think just focusing on like my day-to-day routines and knowing that there was follow through at the end of it has kept me accountable. There was like no room for failure for me in those stages. And also like I know like we've gone through like the fat loss phase and then maintenance phase, knowing when I needed those breaks too.
Mm-hmm.
And like you could recognize like when I needed those breaks
Mm-hmm.
to go into maintenance, like that's all new for me. I
Okay.
think for a long time I've been stuck in like let's cut and not giving myself the time to just like maintain appropriately.
Right.
Because my maintenance in the past has been I would just gain weight. Like
Mm-hmm.
my maintenance was like, okay, I'm done cutting. And then I didn't know how to like maintain. I would just gain
Gotcha.
actually. So yeah, so that's been keeping me locked into is that like that accountability piece and then learning that there's different phases.
Gotcha. I really like that. And I think that it's a really important skill, something I've been talking about in your check-ins recently. It's a really important skill to learn how to maintain the physique that you got, because I think that a lot of people, even people that are really into their fitness, do just go through big swings of fat loss and then blow up and then fat loss and blow up, and you doing the same thing over and over again, right? So the thing I like about, we kind of split your fat loss phase almost in chunks. So it's kind of like a staircase. It's like, okay, let's dig in and let's hold out steady, let us refresh, and then dig in again. And not only is it a nice refresh from like your body and recovery, but also psychologically too. Being in a calorie deficit, it is that added little bit of stress. Even if we do things properly and don't overdo anything, it's still that added little bit of stress. And sometimes you just need a little bit of reprieve, for lack of a better term, to like let your mindset refresh. And you're like, okay, I'm ready to kind of dig back in, right?
Yeah, and I've been there before. Like I've been to a low physique before that I've liked. I've never maintained.
Mm.
So that's where right now I have been able to do that, which is very like I'm proud of myself for that. Like
Yeah.
it's good because I never have been able to do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. And what do you think were some of the lifestyle changes that you've had to adopt in order to still like be able to maintain this? Like, were there some things that you maybe didn't do post diet before that now you're keeping as habits?
Yeah, I lost my sense of tracking during those times where I would finish my cut phase.
Okay.
And so this time I've just continued tracking, even though some days I don't track everything. I'm tracking like some of it. Like
Hmm.
so that's what I've lost in the past is I would
Okay.
just let go of it all. And then it was so hard to get back into having to track again.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can completely understand that. And I think that even the good thing about tracking is like even if you're tracking some stuff, you're still kind of keeping mental track. So we've had a lot of social stuff which we can talk about as well and give some insights into. But on those days, just because it didn't go on a scale or input it into a tracking app doesn't mean that you're like it's not like it doesn't count or something, right? Like,
Yeah.
and you can still keep mental note of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny enough is I still always use my scale. Sometimes I don't track it in my Fitness Pal, but I'm still
Okay.
always using my scale, which is like sometimes I'll bring my scale to my friend's house and I don't care anymore. I don't care. I'll bring it to my like Easter dinner that's coming up this weekend. I'll bring my scale. I will.
Yeah, and it's not to say that you have to, but it's like it's when it becomes such ingrained. And this is something we were talking like in your morning check-in today. Is like it becomes so ingrained in your habits that it doesn't seem weird after a while, even though other people that maybe aren't used to that. But like,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's like it makes you comfortable. And sometimes it's just nice peace of mind knowing that you're still on track so that you don't like when you're going to bed that night, you're like, oh, did I overeat today? Am I gonna, is my progress gonna slide or something like that, right? So it's
Yeah.
kind of like that peace of mind piece as well. Really cool. I'm curious, in those other phases, I know you mentioned you did Weight Watchers before, other than like having those breaks in between, deficit phases, we'll call them. Was there anything else that you found was a bit different with the dieting process?
I think the flexibility, like the following the macros is great, right? The flexibility to be able to fit in things that other people wouldn't, like other ways of dieting wouldn't allow you to incorporate. So with the flexibility of following your macros that are true to your body and yourself, that you still can enjoy those things as long as you track those things. So that's been a real game changer and more sustainable. Like it's more sustainable, right?
Right.
That's more of a lifestyle than having like a meal plan. I've done the meal plans and they're
Mhm.
great, and I've been successful on it, but it's not like it's not sustainable.
Mhm.
Whereas this is sustainable.
Right. It's that I love that you brought that up because that's one of our pillars, obviously sustainability. But I feel like with the meal plan, it's kind of yes, they work for sure, but it's like what do you do after? Or are you going to
Yeah.
follow the meal plan for your whole life? Right. So the thing about macros is you can kind of create your own meal plan while tracking macros. Like most successful clients end up kind of eating similar things at similar times during the day, right? But
Mhm.
you still have the option to change up those things. You know what I mean? So it's like you might still stay within the confines of like the structure of like kind of similar to a meal plan, but you always have the option of it's like, okay, Friday night I'm going out to eat. I'm gonna estimate I'm gonna leave space in my macro budget versus like, oh, I guess today I'm not on my plan, right?
Right.
So I like that. Speaking about like eating out and stuff like that, and I just want you to cover a little bit of like your strategies for when you did go out to eat or when you went out and had a few drinks with your friends. Like, what was your mindset about that, and what kind of strategies did we employ?
Yeah, so if I know that I'm going to a certain restaurant, I always will look up the menu. That way I can plan for whatever my meal is that day or that night. Um, I know that we talked about a lot with really eating some protein focused foods before you're going into like a Christmas dinner or
Mhm.
out with or an outing with friends where you might have a few drinks. So not to not eat anything during the day, but to fill yourself with those proteins so that you can you're not starving when you go there because then you'll start to overeat. So that's been at the beginning of us working together, we talked a lot about that because
Mhm.
I had like we have these events and it was hard to manage some of those at the beginning. Um, so yeah, and then also like if you're having some drinks, like have some vodka sodas
Mhm.
if you can. But also there was one thing you said to me that stuck, and I actually was telling a colleague this today. When you go out with your friends and you wake up the next day after not drinking, do you still like do you say, oh, I really wish I had those drinks, or are you saying like I still had a good time and you still can have that whole day ahead of you? And that really
Mhm.
stuck with me because it's true. If I drink and I wake up the next day hungover and feel like shit, I always
Mhm.
regret it. But if I went out with my friends did the exact same things, had a blast, and woke up in the morning, I always say to myself, like, yesterday was still so much fun, and wow, I have this whole day ahead of me. So that really stuck with me, and I had that conversation with somebody today. It's funny enough that we're bringing it up again, because they were also like, oh yeah, that's true. I do think that way the next day I wake up and I still have fun, and I'm never regretting it. So
Right. I think that's really important. And not to like, I don't want to pull this more off topic, but I think it's important for people to think about this because alcohol is a big part of a lot of our lifestyles. And but sometimes we give credit to alcohol for the fun when in reality it was the experience and the relationships that we're enjoying, right? So it's like I had a great time with my friend. With my friends, we all like got super drunk or whatever. But like, was it the alcohol or was it the fact that you guys are really good friends? You had great conversations and you had a great experience together, right? And we it's like we give credit to the alcohol for the fun, but a lot of times it's like the actual event itself.
yeah, and you wouldn't realize that unless you actually tried it once. Like you
Mhm,
actually tried going out once without drinking and
mhm,
seeing that, oh no, we still had fun.
mhm.
Because some people would just be like, no, I have to drink. That's what we do. Like we go out and we're drinking. Try
Mhm.
it the other way and then see how you feel. And which
Yeah.
I have, and I've experienced. I can still have fun and not have to drink. So
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. And then yeah, as we said, the next day is a lot better. But there's
yeah.
usually that there's usually that good middle ground too. It's like, I usually recommend like 1 to 4 drinks is easier to fit in your macros and not gonna have like the repercussions the next day, and you're still having a good time. But there's diminishing returns past like 4 drinks usually, and that's when you start to have the negative effects. So I think that's really cool. So just to kind of sum it up is like, okay, well, that realization plus like filling up on protein before you go, so you're not starving, but you're also leaving a lot of room in your calories, fats, and carbs budget for like the event.
Mhm.
That's awesome. That's super cool. So I would like to kind of touch on just giving a little bit more context behind like the transformation that you've had so far. So we started. So in total, in terms of like weight wise, we've probably dropped over 10 pounds now, but we've had a pretty significant change in like your visual appearance. So like we were just kind of reviewing that this morning. It's
Mhm.
awesome. So maybe just give me your perception of like how your body has changed and like how you feel about yourself now compared to where we started.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the beginning I was so focused on reaching a certain scale weight, and I'm past that now. I've seen such difference in my strength and my
Mhm.
body since weight training. And another big fear of mine was when like leaving at 45, because I was afraid that I was gonna uh, gain all this weight because I wasn't getting that much cardio in as much as before. But it's actually been the opposite, because I've focused on that the lifting, that I've seen my body and my muscles just like grow. Like
Yeah.
so yeah. So yeah, it's been crazy. Like my weight, again, my scale weight has been the same, but my like physique has just it's changed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a good summary. It's kind of like, yeah, at the beginning we saw more fat loss, but then even when sorry, the scale weight going down, but even when the scale weight started to stay stagnant a little bit, like we were still getting leaner and the look was still changing. And that's what I was also touching on. A lot of things from today's check-in is like, I see that a lot with women where we see like not like negligible change in the scale weight, but like the body looks completely different. And that's you're only going to get that through like a good macro arrangement, good protein, and then like training hard. And that's why I think as women, and maybe you can be a good advocate for this, is like you gotta like lift some weights. You know what I mean? Like go get strong, lift some weights. Not only good for bone density, good for health, but also how you look. You're not gonna get bulky, obviously. Like you're gonna get strong, feel good about yourself. Your energy is gonna be better. So I think it's like, what would you say to maybe some women who are still in the cardio bunny camp and scared of like lifting heavy?
Trust the process. Like trust the process and give it time. I think that I think time is a virtue, and we always at the beginning think that we're never going to be able to achieve it, and we're like, when you ask yourself, like, when is it going to happen? It will happen.
Mhm.
So yeah, trust the process and give yourself some grace and time.
Like that patience. And you speak of strength, do you mind walking us through some of your numbers for some of your lifts? Because I think there's a lot of people out there. I mean, I kind of have them at the top of my head if you, and I have them right here actually if we want, but do
I would
you
have to
like,
look it up. I don't know it off the top of my head, but
let me see if
they're
I can pull it up here. So like I don't think people realize like how strong you are. So as we've gotten significantly leaner, let's just bring up some of these numbers. We hit a 3 sets of 4 with 165 on squats, barbell back squats. That was a pretty big win. I think you've also pulled, what was it, 245 off the ground, conventional for a set of 4 to 6.
240.
I want to say, let me go
I
back
think it
in your
might be
sheets.
more than that.
More? Jeez. Okay, because
Is really?
we've been lifting sumo for a bit, but I think that's when we were lifting conventional.
Yes, conventional.
So hold on a second, not to spend too much time here. Maybe I should have pulled this up before.
Okay.
You pulled 250 for 4.
Yeah.
So and that was at like a 145 body weight, pulling 250 for 4 with like good form too. I mean, we have fun. So like, I don't think people realize probably how strong you are. So that is pretty nuts, like relative strength per pound of body weight. So just a great example of our body, technically speaking, has gotten smaller in terms of like overall mass while getting like stupid strong, right? So it's like, again, just a good example of like, ladies, you're not going to get bulky from lifting, right? So just another good thing to communicate. I think there's some guys listening that are like, damn it, I better set my deadlift game up. But super cool. I really like that. So apart from like the physical changes, what do you think was some of the most like rewarding aspects of like your journey so far?
I think just I think surprising myself and changing my thinking process, like thinking and knowing that like I changed my whole fitness routine in the last couple of months. Like I focused on one thing before and now the focus on something else. So it's been really rewarding to set these goals for myself and be able to see like to actually work towards something and then achieve it. So that's been really rewarding, and mentally, like to have that as a skill has been really helpful for me too. But also like fitness has been like my therapy as well. Like I have a pretty significant job that somehow it sometimes can be pretty draining, and being able to go to the gym and kind of shut everything off and just lift is just like my therapy.
Yeah.
So yeah.
For sure. I really like that. It's like a good outlet, I call it. And I think humans need outlet, and a lot of us use maybe substance abuse or, I don't know, like a lot of other things that we should be using that are not healthy outlets. But I think lifting is that really good place where you can just like put it all out there and release some energy, especially again, if you do have a job that takes a lot out of you or is stressful at times or is emotionally draining as well. It's like you need that release, and having like a very dependable, healthy way of releasing that energy, I think is really important. So I think that's awesome. Awesome.
And I've also learned that you don't need motivation to get yourself to the gym. It's discipline. That's been a huge, like, there's been so many days where I really did not want to go to the gym, but it's just part of my schedule now. Like I have to go. Like, so I've sat in my car before, like, oh, I don't want to do this, but then I do it and I feel so much better. And that's not motivation getting me there.
Yeah. And no, that's so true. It's like that strong habit, and we've been very consistent with like our workouts. Like we don't really miss many workouts unless like something really odd happens. So I think that it's like the non-negotiables of your, like, what is some non-negotiables you have with your fitness journey? Well, one of them is like you getting your 4 workouts, regardless of anything else going on, whether you had good week nutrition, whatever, lots of sleep, no sleep, stressful work, no work. It's like the one constant is like the training, and I think that's something that's really powerful, like a lifelong habit that I think most people should try to get that as like a non-negotiable, Yeah, I think that's really powerful. I'm also curious, like, well, I kind of know the answer, but maybe if you can tell people listening, like, what's your vision for yourself going forward? I know we have a trip eventually that's coming up in the summer, but like in the interim, like, what is your vision for yourself going forward for the next several months, you'd say?
My vision for myself would be to maintain this physique 1000%. My goal would be to up my steps, but my vision is to maintain.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So, and what we were saying is, I think, and this kind of goes back to the conversation we've been having at the beginning of the podcast, was like a lot of people think they can just go back to doing whatever they were doing before and somehow magically maintain the results they've caught in. you might be able to turn the dial back a little bit, but the same habits, skills, routines, and mindset that got you to where you are right now are the same ones that you have to employ to maintain it. It's not as difficult to maintain as it is to like keep pushing for more progress, but I think that it's still like you have to be in that similar type mindset, right?
Yeah, and I got to keep putting the work in. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think that stops.
No.
And so, and yeah, so, and as soon as I think that it does stop is when I feel like I'll probably go backwards. I think that the work will still be there, yeah, you just
That's
have to
amazing.
find joy in it.
Yeah. Yeah. I always say like find happiness in like the monotony, or like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
find a way to really enjoy almost kind of doing the same thing over and over. Not the exact same, but you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
the same routine oriented. That's awesome. And I'm super, super proud of the transformation that we've had so far. And it's been really rewarding for me as a coach too, to see this happen and this unfold so far. And I think we're going to make some really cool changes in your performance too, I think. And now that we're fueling up a little bit, I think you're going to even feel a difference in the gym. Low carbs can go a long way. So if we're able to get that strong when we're in a deficit, like imagine what kind of numbers we're going to see, which are going to be pretty cool. But I want to get your insights on, like, maybe somebody who's been a little bit wishy-washy and on and off with their fitness journey for a considerable portion of time. Maybe they've, done some crash diets, gained it back, whatever. Like, what do you think they should start with, or like what kind of mindset shift do they need to have? Like, what's a good first step for them to like do it properly? You know?
Oh, that's a hard question, because I think that I had to come to that realization on my own, and it took me a few years. I found joy in other things that I thought was the right path, and at the time it was, because it still kept me healthy. Um, but I do think that piece will come as somebody gets committed into just getting healthy. And I think everybody's journey will be different. Like, some will realize that sooner, and other people will realize
Mm-hmm.
that like 4 years into doing doing it one way.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know the right answer to that. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know.
So it's kind of like you just have to reach a certain point before you like it just like clicks, like I need to do things differently.
Yeah, or
Okay.
maybe you reach a certain, like for me, I think I reached a certain fitness level that I kind of almost got bored, and I needed
Mm,
um, to challenge myself more.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're kind of like ready for the next level almost.
Yeah. I also had somebody tell me that I was like, you need to start lifting. Like, you're at a point where you can start lifting now and do it a different way. I
Hmm.
remember that vividly. And
Okay.
so maybe that was it, when I was like, oh, maybe you're right. Like, I can try something else now.
Hmm. Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, I haven't actually heard that before. Because people, I know it's good because people always start in like different places. So I'm always curious to hear, where that shift happens. But yeah, I think, you know, it's more, I always like to say, like, principles, the basic principles always make 90% of our progress. And there's so much noise in the fitness industry. So like, let's bring it back to like what we know works, the basics work, and master them again and again and again. Like basics and principles with nutrition, same thing with exercise and lifting, like all the common principles that you want to master. So I think that, like, if anybody's, starting, they should focus on like, okay, what are the basics, and how do I master them?
Yeah. And what do you enjoy? Like,
Mm,
finding it, like what you enjoy, and then being able to stick to that thing. And maybe
yeah,
not everybody will agree with that fitness route, but if you like it and you love that, then you stick with that, and then eventually you'll get to a different fitness journey.
right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. Sorry, I didn't even mention that. I should talk more about that. If you don't like what you're doing, you're not going to put that much effort into it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, enjoyment, that's a huge one. I'm so glad you brought that up. Really, really
Mhm.
important. Like, what do you enjoy, and like double down on that, and combine it with like it's going to get you the most progress, right? It's like there's a combination. It's like, do I like Bulgarian split squats? No. Do I still do them, right? So
Yeah.
it's kind of like a mixture of what you enjoy, and mixing that with what you know is going to kind of move you to where you want to go, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's amazing. Do you have any other insights or inspiration for anybody like out there, working on their fitness goals or working on themselves, that you want to share?
Yeah. I mean, you'll reach a point in your fitness journey where you might feel defeated. But it all starts up here. It all starts in your thought process. And so you almost have to switch your unhelpful thoughts to helpful thoughts so that you can get through that part. Because if we get stuck in our unhelpful thought, like this is too hard, then that's when we want to quit. And so you have to almost interrupt that thought cycle to get you through the hard times. And that could be like a plateau, that could be a like a workout that you might not like in your phase or whatever it might be. So you have to find a way through that, and you will find a way through that if you keep pushing.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's like catch yourself when you're in those negative thought patterns, right? Like, oh, I
Yeah.
can't do this. It's too hard. I can't manage these things. Or, you know, I had a long day, so I can't go to the gym. Like, whatever it is, small or big thoughts, cut them where they are, because those are always the thing that limit people. I call them self-limiting thoughts or self-limiting beliefs. Those will hold back people from seeing progress way more than any ability level, knowledge, willingness, motivation, right?
Yeah, and be okay with failure too. Like, it's okay to fail sometimes so that you can use it as like a motivation to get back up and try again.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Rachel. This was an awesome podcast. I'm really excited to share it. And yeah, yeah, super cool. And yeah, I appreciate you coming on. And yeah, I guess that's it. That's it for today, unless there's anything else you want to share.
No, I mean, I have to express my gratitude to you too. I mean, you've taught me a lot, and I like, you've helped change my life. So I appreciate you, and I'm excited to what's to come.
Me too. It's been an absolute pleasure. And yeah, very exciting. We're not done yet.
No, we're not.